Hi everybody, Nate here from WASD20. Thanks so much for joining me. Today we are going to be covering many different ways you can represent settlements on your fantasy world maps. So get your pen or pencil ready, get some paper or a map ready. We're going to be drawing towns, cities, villages, keeps, and quite a few other things as well. Let's get down to it. So in this one, we're going to be drawing settlements. Let's begin. The first kind of settlement that we're going to be drawing is just a very simple geometric shape. This is a great way to mark a city with a dot, or perhaps with a square, or perhaps with the square turned diagonal, a diamond shape. Can look really nice. Okay, so you can leave it not filled in if you would rather. Just an outline, or you can fill it in completely. You can make them whatever color you want, and you could make different colors mean different things. I usually fill them in, and then with bigger settlements, I'll make an outline around it. And so I'll keep most of my towns and cities just a dot like that, or a square like this, and then a few of the larger ones I will draw a line around. And that usually does a pretty good job in my mind of marking it as a more important place. You of course could do stars as a shape as well. You could do triangles, octagons, whatever you want. But a star is obviously a very good capital marker, and so on and so forth. All kinds of shapes. One of the advantages of this is that on very large maps, to me, if you have lots of little dots everywhere, it just makes it feel bigger. And if you're going to be drawing big old buildings and towers and stuff on that map that you want to feel very big, it might diminish that effect. Now, onto my kind of classic style here, the way that I've been doing settlements for a long time, is just to make certain icons for towns and for cities. And so this is kind of my traditional small city. Now, I also usually kind of leave, almost make like an eye shape, and then I often will leave like a little door there, or perhaps a window up here too, but we'll just do a door here. Can add a little more detail, but most of the settlement markers that I use are solid black shapes that I fill in. We'll be getting to a couple that aren't here. Okay, so that would mark a fairly medium-sized city or perhaps a small city. And then for the larger cities, you can go like this, doing two towers. And I believe I got this method, I first saw it on the Empire of Leather map. Leather spelled like this. If you go look at that map, that was the inspiration for this style, and I've used it a ton. And then I usually just kind of draw a door. So you notice I made it taller here. I just felt like my towers are too squat. So I can fill them in. Of course, you could leave some windows or some doors, but I just leave this kind of one entrance here usually. Flare out the sides a bit. Little flags, and there you go. So that one could be a larger city, and within those you can have a whole lot of variety. I'll show you one map where I did a whole lot of variety here, and you can see that a lot of them are just variations of this style right here. Let's say that you happen to have one city that's even bigger, you want to make it the capital city. Well, in that case, you can sometimes just make a little bit of extra wall space like this, kind of going out from the edge as if there's larger city walls, and then do pretty much the same thing otherwise. Or one final way that I've done before on some maps is to make a central tower, two smaller towers on the side. Getting fairly messy on this one. I'm just going to do it really quickly, and then you would just shade it in. So those are a couple ways to do those style, kind of icon style settlements. There are many other icons you could do, but those are a couple. Oh, one that I should do is just a little village too. So if you're doing a village, I often will make the roof first. And I'm probably drawing it a little bit bigger than I actually would on my map. You can make a little chimney there since I kind of messed up. And then you can just draw a little squat shape underneath it for the rest of the building. And with this one here, you notice I just left a little gap in between. That's because I normally like to shade it in all black, and if you fill in that gap, then you don't get that nice roof line. And I've done it both ways. It doesn't really matter that much. Often I will leave a little door in there too, perhaps a window, blank like I did with this one right here. But that can give you a feel for ways that you can just kind of use icons. And you can choose that all your cities will be this, and all your villages and towns will be this. And that can work. You can just have two different icons. Don't feel like you need to have a ton of variety here. Look at other maps. I mean, so many of them just have, here's the city logo, here's the town logo. And that's totally fine. They're just these little icons that represent them. If you want to get a little more detailed and get away from the just kind of black block style that I have here, I will show you one of the styles that I learned from How to Draw Fantasy Art and RPG Maps by Jared Blando, one of my favorite books, and I'll put a link in the video description. It's just a really great book. Here we go. So it's this style, and so you can look at some of his examples down here as well, city examples. So let's go ahead and first we'll start with just kind of a small town or village. These ones I'm going to be drawing a little bit bigger because there's just more detail. Move to a bit of a thinner pen here as well. Using my Pigma Micron pens. Link to those in the video description as well. And these are all affiliate links, so buying through those links gives you the same great Amazon price, and yet a little slice of it goes to help support the channel here. Chimney like that. Okay, so you get the idea. Now there's all sorts of variations you could do on that, and some people would prefer to layer more small buildings like Blando does right here. But I usually will just leave it like that. One thing that I've noticed, I learned from Runehammer and from Jared Blando, is just kind of, putting some lines in here like this can look quite nice. Now, that's just one particular style. There are so many other styles. You notice on this one right here, he actually doesn't have them blended in at all. They're just very iconic and look like they're floating above the map. So those are just marking locations. When you add a little bit of ground right here, it kind of makes it feel like an illustrative map, like this place is really there sort of feeling. Just a little bit. So if you wanted to do a larger town, I'll just do one of those here too. You could layer in some more buildings, and you're getting the idea. You can even do a little fence here. All right, so that's maybe more of a little town rather than this one, which is just a little bit more of like a town symbol. For some kind of a keep or a tower, you could do something like this. The Blando style, we'll call it. And you could still add some other buildings here. But a little bit more of a defensive look to this place. Sometimes it's nice to make the top of the tower bigger here. And this, of course, is giving it the look of battlements. All right, so you get the idea there. Now, if you were going to do an actual city in his style, he's got really big cities. So I'll try my best here and we'll see how that looks. If you want to make a castle, you would do what I'm doing with cities, except you would make more of these battlements here. So we're making a big walled defensive city here. There could even be some little buildings like this on the edge that aren't quite inside the boundaries of the castle or the city walls. Some windows on here if we want to. And then of course we want to fill in lots of stuff here. So let's just fill in some rooftops in the city. You're getting the feeling here of a large walled settlement that's quite different from, certainly we're getting pretty far from some of these. Anyway, there's lots of different possibilities here. If you want to see a lot more, check out this book. But if you want to have less of a city feel and more of a straight castle feel, doing less of these sorts of roofs, these kind of pointy roofs, and more just battlement style everything will give it that feel. Now, one other style that I kind of learned from Jared Blando that he doesn't actually use for cities, I think he uses it for regions, are these kind of shield markers. And I like the idea if you have, like maybe 5 major cities in your world. I'm thinking like the major cities in Westeros, for example. I think it would be really cool to use these sorts of markers. So maybe you have, these coat of arms like symbols where we have, 3 dots here. And then right here we've got this, a crow or something, right? Or maybe it's a black dragon. We'll do that because that's easier for me to draw. All right, so you get the idea. So you could have different sorts of markers. You can make little borders around them if you want to, fancy them up a bit. Let's draw another one here. This one we'll do 2 crossed swords. We'll make them curved. There we go. And then of course we've got some stuff going on the edge here. There we go. So you get the idea. You can do lots of different symbols, kind of coat of arms like symbols, and those can denote different cities and can tell you a little bit about that city and maybe what symbolizes that city. So just to give a quick shout out, I wanted to talk about the 3D method. I tried it on the other sheet of paper. It didn't go well. It didn't go well here. It's just something that I really struggle with, and it comes down to getting perspective right, which is something I really haven't studied or learned since art school about probably 22 years ago, art class that is. So anyway, you want to try to maybe draw a town wall. You can start with that, or else if you want to do just a jumble of buildings, I recommend starting with the roof lines like I was doing here, just kind of going in and drawing some roof lines. And if you're doing these really small and your map is large, no one's really going to tell if you don't have perspective just right. Something like this can still look kind of cool, just a jumble of buildings within a town wall. So go ahead and play around with those, and if you know more about perspective, you'll probably get it to look even better. Another couple honorable mention type things that I often have people asking how to draw. Let's do some ruins. So for a ruin, I will often start with kind of this broken up looking tower here, and then maybe we have a broken piece of wall as well. And then there's some completed wall, and then behind that you can have some more layers of broken stuff, and maybe you can shade some of it in here, and just some piles of rubble I think are important, and a couple stones just going like that too. All right, so that's how you might consider doing some ruins. Another one, mines. If you're gonna do mines, and I think if you're doing it in this style right here, you might just wanna do this sort of thing. Another option would be to actually like make a little mine cart. I've seen people do that before. I'm not very good at that. Or the way I've often done mines on my maps is just like this. Kind of the opposite of that way. Sometimes I'll do kind of more tribal looking teepee type things on my maps too. So perhaps these are people who are more nomadic and live off the land. Or, you can make it kind of spiky looking too, and then maybe it would be more appropriate for like monsters, some kind of orcs maybe, if you kind of make these big old horn looking things there. Or you can just keep it fairly simple with something like this. All right, so those are more tribal nomadic settlements. If you're gonna do a dwarven city, let's do that real quick. So if you're gonna do a dwarven city, you're probably gonna be doing this into a mountainside, let's say. So let's draw some mountains first. All right, and let's say that we have a dwarven city right here. I will often start with this sort of shape for almost like a doorway into the mountain. That's how I like my dwarven settlement to look, like a doorway into the mountain. And you can maybe do some big pillars right here. Or you could try to do some statues of some kind. Now let's darken this in here. And voila. There we go, some kind of dwarven city going into the mountain there, a big doorway. Now, if you wanted to do some farmland on a map, you know, in this style, you would probably want to do something like this, fields like this. If you're doing this style, I think you can get away with more of just a top-down view on farms, and you just kind of do some hatching. And this to me, and to many other people, signifies fields, crops, farmland. All right, so those are a few ideas I have on drawing settlements for your fantasy maps. If you have any questions, comments, let me know down below. I would love to see your maps. As always, you can share them with me on Twitter or on Facebook, or you can even email me at sellswordmaps@gmail.com, which is also where I take map commissions. All right, thanks so much for joining me for this one, everybody. If you enjoyed it, make sure you give it a thumbs up. Leave your comments down below. And if you're not a subscriber already, I would love to have you subscribe as well. If you are interested in supporting my work to make sure these videos keep coming, go check out my Patreon page, patreon.com/WASD20. And of course, buying through those Amazon affiliate links is also a great way that you can help support my work. Same great price for you, and a little cut goes to me. Thanks so much again for joining me, everybody. Have fun drawing your maps, and everybody take care. You'll see me again very soon.